What's up, guys? Ace here today. Bring you guys a review stream, a live stream of Zendikar Rising. Spoilers. And we got some pretty neat stuff here today, so let's just get into it. First card we have is Magmatic Channeler. 1 and a red creature, human, wizard. As long as there are 4 or more instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, Magmatic Channeler gets +3/+1. Tap, discard a card, exile top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. 1/3. This is one of those cards that I think are pretty interesting. I'm not getting Robber the Rich vibes from this, but I think if there's like a mid-range Izzet deck, you'd probably want to play this. Maybe a mid-range Rakdos deck would want this, especially for the fact that this allows you to dump things in your graveyard, which helps with a lot of things, especially with like if you're playing a Kroxa sort of deck where you want to put stuff in your graveyard to cast Kroxa, which is kind of neat. It becomes a 4/4 beater late game. Like this could be a beater control in standard. I don't think you play another thing besides the mid-range deck. Maybe a control, like is it control? It's a 1/3, so like it blocks a lot of aggro, and it allows you to go through your deck. But the bad thing about it is you have to exile top 2 cards of your library. And think about this, like you might be wondering, hey, why would you play this as like a Sigil Starfish stand-in? I think you should look at it as like discard a card, you may scry one and then draw a card, but you have to play that card this turn if you don't discard it or something like that. Like it's essentially an spell shaper, right? I think that's kind of neat. And it becomes a 2/4 if you have 4 more. It's kind of a big ask. Not really for like is it Spellslinger? Maybe this is like a Spellslinger deck more often than not, which can also double as like an aggro-ish sort of effect. Like you don't care if you're instant sorcery with your graveyard. If it's a 1/3 by the time like you go to combat, this is just a 4/4 for 2 mana. Like I don't think you want to discard at that point. It's just like a big beater against control decks or even mid-range decks. The win con in that piece. I think this is a nice card. If there's an Izzet mid-range deck in standard, you play this probably. In EDH, you probably play this in Battle Cruiser to mid power. It's just discard a card, look at the top 2. The bad thing is you may or may not exile, depending on your CMC range, you may exile like a combo piece, which kind of sucks. That would really suck. But it's like it's tap and you rummage. But it's a little better than rummage in that you can see top 2, which is actually kind of neat. It's not card advantage, but you do filter a lot with this, which I think is kind of cool. I don't think there are any other cards like this. Like it's better. It's definitely better than like a Sigiled Starfish. But it's not good where you want to play it. I don't think in any high power decks. I think it's more battle cruisery to mid power. It's kind of neat card though. Kind of neat. Next up, we have Luminark Aspirant. 1 and a white creature, human, cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. 1/1. Hey, I think this card is actually kind of neat for an aggro deck. It infinitely gets bigger. You play this on turn 2. It's a 2/2. Then it smacks for 3, 2 mana 3/3. But hey, you don't even have to like attack with this. You can put a counter on your 1/1 or whatever 1-drop you had and make that bigger. Oh, this Healer Hawk is not in next standard, is it? You can make your Healer Hawk attack for 2 on turn 2. That's actually kind of good. Wait, your your Speaker of Heavens, it attacks for 2 on turn 2 instead of 1. Would you play a 2 mana 1/1 that gets your creatures bigger? Right? You don't even have to like deal combat damage for this. I think this is a really strong card. If there's a white aggro deck, they play this. I'm getting 100% getting like Robber the Rich vibes from it. I think Robber the Rich is one of those cards that are like unassuming, like hey, it steals some stuff, but like you're probably not gonna play the card. But there are cases where a card like Robber the Rich, aka also this card, where there are more situations than not where you're not doing anything, and the card you pull off them is kind of strong. And like you're not doing anything, but putting a counter on a creature is kind of strong. And sometimes like this is a card they have to kill. And it also means you don't have to invest in the board too much. So it's like protection against board wipes in that sense, where like it goes tall, and if they don't deal with it, you're just killing them. So turn 3, they're taking 3 damage. Turn 4, and this is assuming you're not playing any creatures. Turn 3, taking 3 damage. Turn 4, they're taking 4 damage. so that they're down to 13. They take 7. Turn 5, they take 5 damage. So 13 minus 5, 8. So like 4 turns of swinging with this. I mean, it's kind of slow if you're like playing this anytime later. It's kind of bad, but like you're probably playing this in blue, white, green, or white, green, right? So then you get the counters from like things that like give double counters. I think this is a strong card. I don't think you play this in EDH, but standard, I think this is going to be a strong standard card. And maybe even historic. I think this is the first time white gets to put counters on things that doesn't require mana or isn't like super mana intensive for a 2-drop. This is a strong, I like this cleric. This is a cleric that actually like buffs your creatures. I'm so behind this cleric. This is sick. Also, the name. That's a name. That's a name I want to hear my clerics be called. Like Luminark Aspirant. That's a sick name. It 100% has that feel of like a cleric healing you too. Like getting your creatures bigger. It itself can also get bigger. That's sick. This is sick. This is a good card. I don't think you play in any EDH deck besides like a green-white specific counter deck where like this can get counters on your creatures. But other than that, I think this is like, I want to make my standard deck with this card. This is a sick card. Anyways, next up we have Scale the Heights. 2 and a green, sorcery. Put a +1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You gain 2 life. You may play additional land this turn. Draw a card. This is the budget Oko deck I was talking about. The budget Oko card, where it's like basically Oko but on a sorcery. It's also kind of bad. Sorcery speed. I mean, it's kind of there, right? Kind of. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. All right. Next up, we have Seagate Restoration. 4 blue sorcery. With draw card equals number of cards in your hand +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. And has another side that is a land that is Seagate Reborn. Enters the battlefield. You may pay 3 light. If you don't, enter tapped. And it taps to add 1 blue. I think this card is pretty cool. It's pretty neat. It's kind of like reminiscent of obviously the other ones. That is the white the white sorcery that's also land, and the red sorcery. Is it a red one? The red sorcery that's also land. This one, however, I think is a little more too much win more than the other ones. The other ones I don't think are win more. It's just like useful opposed to win more. Like sometimes this probably is gonna come in and it's like you top deck it late game, and it's like 7 mana draw card. Just like 7 mana cycle. Like, would you play that? I mean, it's probably better than drawing a land late game, but I feel like most of the time it's gonna be bolt yourself early if you have this in your hand. Like, I don't know. Oh, this is so rough. I can't wait to see what standard's gonna look like with these cards. Like, is a land just better than this because most of the time it's gonna enter tapped? Do you really want to ping yourself for the option of later having the ability to potentially draw a card if you have just one of these in your hand? Or in your deck. Like if you have 2 cards, then it starts becoming a little better. 3+, it's like decent. It's like okay. The fact that you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game is kind of cool. Like it doesn't matter too much. And it's whatever. Like in EDH, obviously you play it just because like you can. Like in EDH, you probably play this in every blue deck because the opportunity cost is so low. Like, you can't fetch it, but if you're playing, like, mono blue high power, you probably play this. Like, Battle Cruiser to high power, you probably play this. Like, it doesn't matter too much. And, like, late game, if you draw this, like, you have the potential to draw, like, some cards. Like, cards like this, it's like, you really want to keep your lands, like, knowing that, like, if you have a flooded late game, and you know that you have this card in your deck, and you, like, top deck this, it becomes a little better. Like, it's better than drawing, like, another land for what it's worth. But it's definitely more like win more. Like if you have a bajillion cards in hand, you're probably winning. Like the opportunity cost is so low for EDH games. For standard games, this is not being played. Definitely not. Like you're probably winning already if you can cast this. Like in control mirrors, it's like okay, draw a card, 7 mana. Like I'll totally be fine with you resolving that. And it's coming in tapped. Like control mirrors, it's like fine. Still not gonna be worth it probably. But like there are situations where like it could come through, I guess. Like Control mirrors, you probably don't copy or counter this. 7 mana. So if this is instant speed, then you'd play it in control. But other than that, like the white one's better because like they can't destroy your creatures because your creatures have indestructible. You're not named creatures. Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard deciding for these cards. I think you play in every mono blue EDH deck at least. This is a decent card. Decent card in EDH. I don't know how it's gonna be in standard, but my standard feelings tell me this is probably gonna be more a bad card. Generally, most of the time it's gonna be worse than an island because of the fact that it's probably gonna enter tapped. If you're like in the controlled shells that play this, it's probably gonna be bad because you're probably gonna be playing against more mid range / aggro deck, and so most of the time it's gonna be coming in tapped, where you probably want to play an island for like your early ops or something like that. Like, the tempo is probably, you probably want the tempo compared to other decks. See how strong a lot of the more aggro cards are? Like the Luminark Aspirant. Like, imagine playing this untapped, and then I swing at you with my 3/3. That's 6 life at turn 3. Like, I'd be totally fine for playing this card. That'll be interesting to play. But anyways, let's go to our next card. Especially with like a bunch of these 2 mana cards have like 3 power. Like, do you really want to pay that life? I don't know. For this effect, it's like a win more. I don't know. Anyways, next up we have Kargan Intimidator. 1 in a red. Creature, human, warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. For 1 mana, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Other option is target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. Target warrior gains trample until end of turn. 3/1. This card is kind of sick. Like, would you 4 mana for a 3/1 that can become unblockable? That can also be a 4/2. It's kind of a mana dump. I don't think it's worth it. Have your creature become unblockable? Like, you can only have 1 coward for every one of these creatures. So at most 4. That's super mana time. That means you're probably late in the game. It's probably not worth it. Like, it's a cute card. Target warrior gains trample. That might save it. 2 mana 4/2. It probably trades up. Also, not that Arboreal Grazer is going to be around for this, but like, this kills Arboreal Grazer. Gosh, that card is silly. This is like I don't think this card will be see play over other cards in the next standard, but it's definitely like flashy. Like it for that reason. Alright, what else do we have? Thieving Skydiver. This card is kind of sick. I think it's kind of sick. Thieving Skydiver is 1 in a blue creature merfolk rogue. With kicker X, X can't be 0. You may pay an additional X as you cast the spell. Flying. So this is almost always 3 mana 2/1 with flying, if X can't be 0. When Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control target artifact with a converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to the Thieving Skydiver 2/1. So I don't think it's going to be useful in standard unless equipment's really going to be a thing. Like we are in Zendikar, but I don't think we've seen too much interesting equipment. Maybe there's some more in the future. So I don't think it's going to be played too much in standard. However, when it comes to EDH, you can take a Skull Clamp. You can take the Mox Diamonds. You can take the Mana Crypts, the Soul Rings for 3 mana. Then you just have one of those for 3 mana. Yes. Yes, 100%. This is gonna be like a blue EDH staple. There are just so many artifacts in EDH. You play this in all blue decks. I'm calling it now. Like, there's nothing to discuss about this. Like, there's just Soul Ring is up staple. Mana Rocks are a staple. Not a lot of other colors. Unless you're playing green, a lot of other colors are not gonna have artifacts. This is just gonna be a staple. It's just gonna be a staple. Just how it is. Just how it is. So we'll just skip that. We're just gonna pass that for now. We'll just pass that card for now because that card is just, this card is just so good. Like, if X is 0 and there's nothing on the battlefield, it's like it's gonna kind of suck. Like, the higher power level you are, this becomes better. Like, it's just so good. Like, I say the higher power level the better because, like, the higher the power level is, it's 3 mana sorcery, take a Mana Crypt, you get tempo advantage for most of the table because you have more mana. I mean, you tapped out for it for 3 mana, still mana crypt. Is that worth it? 3 mana for a mana crypt? Maybe not, but like you stop the other player from like having much mana. So like not only are you getting yourself an advantage, you're ramping for 3 mana. You're also like stopping the other dude from doing anything his turn because you stole his mana rock that he needed. He only has like 3 lands in his whole deck, so like he's not playing any cards for the rest of the game. Like this card is good. It's a good card. Play it. Play it in your blue decks. You play blue, you play this card.